What's up, everyone? This episode of Power Spike is brought to you by Trolley Sour Bright Crawlers. We can't get enough of their soft gummy texture and absolutely love their surprising flavor combinations. It's the perfect adventure for your mouth when you are gaming. Room for hosts to share their favorite flavors of Trolley. This is where okay, my bad. Yeah, I really love the strawberry grape flavor. It is my favorite.
Scuffed read.
Nice.
Why?
Dgon's a professional.
Dgon, insert opinion here. Yes. Well, it's the only thing that's keeping. I think the trolley gummy worm is the only thing that is keeping Dom upright right now after his day of 2 5-game series in LPL and LEC, stretching on for hours and hours and hours
and face
hours.
check in between, which Dgon stretched for like, I mean, it could have been over in like an hour.
Okay,
he stretched it for like an hour and 35
We've
minutes.
done this show for like 5 years, Dom. How often is it me that has a scheduling time thing? All right, I just want to put that one out there. Don't throw me under the bus on that one.
No.
There's the 30 minutes before. Was that me trying to set up my camera?
Oh, we know how that goes. We all know how that goes.
All right. Again, shout out to Trolley Gummy Worms. Get your tongue twisting, mind warping power thrills at trolley.com. Also, Andrew,
and then insert your opinion after.
Answer your opinion. Also, Andrew came up with a pretty good term. We're running off of pure trolley dust right now. I really like that. Where's your bag, Dom? You have your bag with you somewhere?
No, I haven't left my desk. I haven't eaten anything. I mean, I ate one thing. God. I ate a protein bar, and I realized like when you're because like obviously the LPL playoffs have been going, and we've been doing LCS with LPL playoffs, which means that literally when you do LCS into LPL playoffs, there's not enough time. Like even if you fell asleep the second you turned off the stream, you still would not get 8 hours, right? Like there's just not the time to sleep in between. So we have all those days of that, and then we have LPL into LEC for these next days, and then I do the talk shows on this day too. So yeah, I mean, we're just, I don't know, we're 13 hours in. I might say some crazy shit. I'm feeling it.
So Dom, casters have a rule where it's like you start to get loopy after about 5 hours, 6 hours, and you start to say things you'll regret. But I mean, you're like twice that deep now, so we're really go.
I mean, maybe I'll just start making like perfect sense after 12 hours. Maybe it just like reverses, and I'm just fine.
I doubt it. That just seems like that's not what's going to happen. So then let me get this jersey thing out of the way before we go too crazy. The Women's World Cup is happening right now. So for those of you football fans, soccer fans, happening around the world, I love seeing international competition. And
you must hate League of Legends. Anyway, continue.
I love the world portion of League of Legends. That's when I feel the most alive. So the Philippines has had their first ever national team play in the Women's World Cup. They play again tonight later on, and they played well. They actually scored a goal that was offside, so it was barely offside. So just representing the team platform that I have. So
nice.
There we go. All right. For those of you watching live, we just saw 5 games of banger action that Dom loved of G2 versus XL, where it was a close series, very, very close series. Went down to Elder Dragon in game number 5. We got some silver scrapes. Dom, please give us your thoughts fresh off of that series.
I mean, it was something else, man. I felt like G2 was, I mean, generally they're the better team, but they made so many int plays. It feels like G2 might just be getting nerfed from the fact that they're winning all their scrims, or they're just like fighting all the time and just winning fights and out-handsing people, because a lot of the fights they go for, there's like no reason you'd go for that fight unless you think you're significantly better than your opponents. So yeah, I don't know. It was pretty tough to watch for me, because I think G2 should be playing at a higher level. Like they've been the team that I've been the most hyped for from Europe the entire time, and they were putting themselves in situations they didn't need to be in. I mean, I think Yike had a pretty rough series overall. Like, I don't think he was playing very well in the series. I mean, Peach
he did save the final game at least. He made the play that won the final game.
Yeah, but I mean, that final game like is massive draft gap in their favor, and they just kept on fucking it up like over and over again. So it's hard for me to see a series like that and feel super good about EU's chances. But then again, maybe XL has improved. I guess we'll have to see next week when we get the loser bracket best of 5.
I mean, I just get kind of confused by some of the like the G2 draft strategy within some of these games, because when like when you look at the rel first picks on blue side over champions like Kaisa, which we know are just extremely powerful right now, and obviously that's like raising up the ranks in terms of priority around the world. I just really question what these guys are doing. And I think it's just disappointing to me, because I'd like to see G2. I appreciate the fact that they I think they're 6-1 on the Kog'Maw right now. So it has been a successful pickup for them. And we've also seen them play the Jace, or the Lucian into the Jace. So they kind of have unique counter picks in some ways, or unique strategies that more or less have only been utilized by G2, or at least utilized multiple times by G2. We've seen a couple of Kog'Maw games in LCS from Berserker and Tactical, I believe. But for the most part, it's been G2 that has been the most successful on the Kog'Maw pickup. So I appreciate that they have this deep bag of tricks, but at some point, I would also just like them to prioritize the power picks and be able to play those as well, because at this point, I feel like they're kind of getting too cute.
Yeah, they're definitely drafting in ways where you feel like, I mean, either they're way ahead of the meta or they're way behind. There's no in between. Like, I just think that they don't play a lot of the champions super well that are currently meta. Like the Jace in that last game, up until a point, he was landing like 0 shock blasts. And once he finally started hitting them, the game changed. But when you compare that to like other Jaces that you see, it feels like the champion is just not as powerful. The Kaisa pick just doesn't feel the same as well. So I just think the prios end up weird. Also, like Braum is good, but I feel like you want to set up Braum picks in situations that make sense. I mean, I guess they kind of like got the other team to pick Braum at a point, and then they got the Milio, which is an insane counter for G2. But a lot of the times, I feel like the games are way harder than they actually need to be.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If G2 loses this series, because Excel had hell of an opportunity here in game number 5 to do it. They had the momentum going into it as well. Just a Peach. God, Peach is so not good. But if they lose this series, how different do we view G2? Is it still like, oh, well, you know, they're dominating. They've dominated all year. They don't even need this championship to go to the championship points. Or is it like, hey, this is actually catastrophic? How do we feel about if they lost this one in game 5?
I mean, I think you could hear in the interviews with Dylan Falco and Broken Blade after the match that especially Dylan, their coach, was pretty directly unsatisfied. And he's a kind of, I would say, circumspect and quiet guy. And for him to directly say that he was pretty disappointed in their performance today, I think is kind of indicative of that's not what they've been doing in scrims. And that isn't what he expects of this roster. So I think that this is probably a one-off, and maybe some cockiness for G2 that they were. I think they were just trying to be too clever in a lot of these drafts, because, like, again, like, they have their unique picks. They have this way they like to play the game. But I think that if they just prioritize a lot of the biggest power picks that are available right now, the drafts look very different, and you would be able to see an easier road to victory. It's almost like they're fighting themselves in order to win some of these games. And yes, if the Kog'Maw gets to 3 or 4 items with Milio, we see Hansama able to carry these team fights. But it's a matter of kind of getting yourself up to that point. And also Hansama, you know, legitimately was making positioning errors in the mid game, which were opening doors in game 5 for Excel to actually win.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing that I would assume that Dylan as a coach would echo most of these sentiments. But the things that I was most disappointed about was the fact that, okay, if you are playing those champions, you have to play like you have those champions. Like, if you have Cog Braum, you don't play like you have Samira Nautilus and go fight in their jungle level 5 before you have items when you have like a fucking dagger or some bullshit. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, why are we even fighting half the time? I mean, like, this invade on Rel. The Rel's like perma invading. The Lucian is just diving mid. It's just so uncoordinated. There's no reason to be doing any of this. And there was just a lack of structure overall in the game. So for me, watching watching it, it just felt like G2 on the day, like they were just playing way too aggressively to be playing the things that they were playing during the split. And if you watch the way they played during the split, I even went back and I looked at some of the games. Each of their COG Braum games before, besides for the one where the game was completely fucked up early, where Yike, died and Certus Azir had 1 million kills. Besides for that one, these were low kill games. These are games where they get Baron when the kill score is like 2 to 4. They're playing slow, they're playing control, they're waiting until COG is spiked, and then they're just taking the objectives on the map and snowballing off that. So watching the way that they were playing today, it just felt like they lost the discipline that they had been working on all split, and that's disappointing because they actually had cultivated a new angle, a new dimension to their playstyle, and that just wasn't there today.
More of the story, G2 cocky, more news at 5. That's what it just feels.
They got it done in the end, though. And it was a very exciting end to the game, number 5. I mean, Yike did make the kind of wave cut play that prevented XL from closing the game and gave them a shot at another Baron. So, I mean, they did actually end this in the way that we thought it should have been and stopped XL. I do want to praise XL a little bit, though, because this team is definitely more than the sum of its parts. And I think Abadage had a very good day, which we haven't seen from him in quite a while. He was like pretty mediocre when he was at the end of his 100 Thieves career and then starting again here on XL. But the turnaround for XL has been extremely good. And the reunion of many of these Schalke players, at least in their mid game, they do make decisive decisions. And I think they do trust each other and play around each other well. The question is really whether they would have the individual playing ability in order to match up versus top teams, because I think their coordination has generally been there. But they also have to kind of out team fight their way out of early deficits a lot of the time, whether that's Peach, who often has really struggled in the early game, or OMG, who had been, I think, good in their last series that XL played, but maybe not so great today, and hasn't had, I think, the best year by his standards. So it feels like they're able to battle back, but the cap on this team is just, it's not that high. And I don't want to see this team play internationally, because if they give up some of the advantages in the early game to really good teams, these games are going to be very ugly.
If you are drafting Kennen and the enemy top laner is playing Renekton and he also speaks Mandarin, you will lose the game if you die one time at level 3. That is just how it works. You will lose the entire game.
Dom, I need you to let's tap into the 12 hours of work here and do some role play. You are the agent for Peach. Can you please give me some redeeming qualities about why he needs to return to this team next year?
You were 10th place without him. That's pretty much it. You were 10th place without him. He might suck, but at least he does some shit. And you guys were the most inactive team in the history of fucking LEC. If you go back and you watch those splits, that winter and spring split, and you see the way the team lost by just doing nothing and letting the enemy team make every single fucking play they wanted on the map and then just sit back, farm, and lose, you'll see what Peach brings to this team. Peach just walks around and makes shit happen. He just walks around and ints, and then people can play off the ints. You have players that they want to fight, but they don't know how to fight. And Peach makes the fight happen, whether he does it in a good or a bad way. So that's what I would say.
He makes the decision for you. And in the late game, it doesn't matter how many times he dies, because anyone can press R on Maokai and win a team fight.
This is true. But they can't press R on Trundle and win a team fight, which is why.
Are you pressing R on the Maokai?
Oh, I guess you could. All right. Well, that was the G2 XL series. Again, G2 will be waiting in the grand finals for the summer split. Winner of that summer split will be moving directly to Worlds. That's how that works, right? Yeah. Summer split winner goes directly to Worlds. Everyone else plays through the championship, the LEC championship. Yeah. Oh man, all the naming shit for the LEC. I keep fucking it up. Season finals. That's what it's called. The season finals. Fuck. All right. Okay.
See, I know, Dgon, you think that because we have a 2023 League of Legends season, as well as, the all of the different, the season finals are at the end, right? So that's the one consistency in terms of the language. Except there's also winter season, spring season, and summer season with the 2023 season. So what season is it?
Yeah, and then also like the season finals are the world championships technically, which that would be the real finals of the entire season. But like who the fuck cares at this point? Just might as well look. Literally, I've talked about this with Thorne a million times, and we've just overrode the the LEC, and we just call it best of ones, best of threes, best of fives. That's it.
Well, also, why can't you just call it the LEC championship? Doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah. Well. Also, I need to clarify what I said earlier. The summer playoffs winner does not get the free seed. There is no free seed to Worlds. You have to place high enough in the summer, in the season finals, which you will be seeded by championship points. Okay, there we go. That's why championship was in there. And there's no season for the finals because the finals is seasonless. It's timeless. Except in 2023, because it's going to happen in 2023. We need to do this segment every show, just because it's so fucking ridiculous in terms of the naming nomenclature. All right,
Name the LEC naming every show.
Format good, naming fucking awful.
Yeah.
Format. I'm not even sure if the format's good at this point. I don't even know if I like the format anymore after seeing it multiple times. I think that the problem with the format is that you only play over 2 patches for like the entirety of the split. And I think that that's not that great overall for teams, because I think a big part of the game is being able to like adapt and learn a patch and then move to another patch. I think that's one problem. I think the other problem is that if the patches suck, which some patches just fucking suck, you're just going to end up watching some bullshit. And like, think about the patches we had. 13-11 was such a terrible patch. That was when Yuumi was super OP, Zeri was super OP, Milio was super OP, and Static Shiv was really fucking OP. Like it's a complete clusterfuck. And that's normally one of the worst patches to play on, because you have the big mid-season patch, then you have this 13-11 section, which is like Riot seeing how things go in competitive, and then they fix it 13-12 and the game becomes better again. So it's always that first patch. You don't want to be stuck there, but that can eliminate you. Like that can eliminate you on for a whole split, that one section of the tournament. So
it only eliminates the bottom 2 teams. Let's be real. Come on. I don't care how bad the patch is. If you can't get out of bottom 2, fuck off.
I mean, then Vitality will just fuck off then. Like,
okay.
FlyQuest will fuck off then.
I mean, we're only eliminating the bottom 2. FlyQuest also had many more opportunities to not fuck off, and they chose not to take them.
Yeah, I feel like FlyQuest is a more legitimate bottom 2 than a Vitality is a bottom 2, because they got to play on like 3 different patches. So you can't even make the argument that it's like they were bad at everything. Like they were bad consistently at every part of it. Whereas like sometimes teams just suck on a patch. Like you just don't. For example, how many teams are still banning LeBlanc on blue side in EU? How many teams are still afraid of letting, like, that's the OP pick. You look at China, Rookie is like, please give me it. The only time that LeBlanc is banned on blue side is like when Fofo's in the game. And he even will play it for some teams. He just won't play it against Rookie, because Rookie is literally his fucking father. But outside of that, most people are going to be at least playing it at some point. And, a bunch of the EU teams, they just gave up. And it doesn't. And I think another problem with the format is it doesn't allow you to actually feel like you could practice a lot of the time. Like there's only one team maybe 2 that actually were practicing during the split. Everyone else is like just playing for their fucking lives because they're so scared at some point that they're going to like fall through. I mean, even XL, who ended up doing pretty well, like they started 0-3. So they were in do or die mode after week number 1, which means that like week 2 and week 3, they're just playing for their lives. They don't have the ability to be like, oh, let's diversify our playstyle.
I think this is more of a complaint about, well, you have extra splits would be the argument. So all you have to do is not get bottom 2. And if you need time to retool and you get bottom 2, you're still going to be able to scrim and actually fix any cohesive issues throughout that entire time period, right? So in a way, because there are more splits, you have some more downtime, but you also have time to actually fix problems if you get eliminated, which I think is different if you're in the constant grind of the regular season forever. The other thing I would mention is that the complaint might be about the patches, which I agree with you on, but I think that if Riot is going to move other regions to this kind of cadence, then, which by all accounts, they are going to do that, then they might also move the patching cycle in order to make this better, which would alleviate a lot of your complaints.
Oh, wait.
Sure.
I don't think that they would change the patching cycle, because that doesn't, the patching cycle doesn't feel like that's an esports thing. That's a game thing. So
But the implementation of when those patches enter the esports realm, and also they can also do things like, if they know, they could make more major changes on the patches that the esport isn't on, and then refine them for the patch that the esport is on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if you're skipping patches, you can actually kind of do more or less changes in the patches where the esport is being played on, versus the ones that will never have the esport played on them.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of coordination with esports, but much more doable than like, hey, can you do a patch every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks instead of every 2 weeks, and then you just can't play solo queue. Like, I think that's the main issue I have with this format, and kind of what happened with the LCS. It felt like you had no way of just grinding out games and getting familiar with it and getting the muscle memory into how things feel on solo queue. It was just scrims or tournament realm, and that just doesn't seem conducive for all regions practicing purposes. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So hopefully the powers of be are thinking about that a little bit, and not just like, well, looks like everyone's practice results are just going to be a lot worse. Right?
I think they're going to be pretty large systemic changes to the League of Legends esports circuit for next year.
All right. Well, we talked G2 and Excel and kind of the LEC structure as a whole. Let's move forward to one of our favorite segments of the day. Time for Devoured, where we take a look at how one team ate up another team. This one is presented by Trolley. All right, let's take a look at it and get into it. Okay, again, one more time. Get your tongue twisting, mind warping, sour throws at trolley.com. Just kind of the way our one team that ate up the other team did. KT. It was a battle at the top of the leaderboards over in the LCK. KT versus Gen.G, the two titans of this year going head to head. And Monty, it was quite the slaughter.
That's right. KT is the predatory bird, and Gen.G were the delicious worms being absolutely chewed to pieces, right? Just like that. Dgon's giving you the sample right now. It was glorious. It was glorious. KT did what they needed to do coming in. We got to see new champions from players who had never played them before. So weirdly, BDD had never played a single professional game of Jace in his entire career, which, if you consider him as a kind of poke player, is quite surprising, but had a very good game in his debut on Jace. These were two games. One of them was 27.5 minutes. The other was 26 minutes. Pretty dominant overall. And KT does the opposite of G2, where they just lean into all the power picks. Have they played them before? Doesn't matter. They're going to take them in the early rotations. Does that mean that Aiming's going to play every single game for the rest of his career on Kai'Sa, as long as it's insanely broken like it is right now? Yes. And finally, teams are thinking about banning it versus him, but gets it in game 2 anyway. And even though FaZe does achieve a lead early on, Aiming just goes ahead and swaps into lanes on the other side of the map and gets advantages in other ways. Keen continues to be absolutely amazing. As for our Keen Pain, as you put it last week, for MVP, it's going fucking great right now. All the FaZe stands in absolute shambles as a result of this series. FaZe, my complaint about FaZe was that he was doing his job, but his job didn't necessitate that he be the big playmaker on the team. And yet, this one game number 2, oh yeah, that's right, FaZe has the lead. He's getting ahead in lane. Does FaZe step up and hard carry this game? No. He brutally ints and gets caught out multiple times when he is his team's only win condition, not an MVP. Keen is a fucking MVP. He's the hero, constantly getting into the back lines, constantly turning games on their head, playing amazing Renekton flanks. Hell yes, go Keen.
The specific play that I think highlights that is in game 2, Lahen's, I think, or it starts with Cuz ulting on Poppy, Delight away on Rakan, and then Lehens on Alistair just punches Pays like out of the pit into the middle of the rest of the team, and he just gets destroyed. And it's like unlucky that the support got knocked out, but it was just Pays getting beaten up. And yeah, shout outs to the Keen Pain HQ is pretty happy. Dom, this series, it was KT dominance, and we're kind of
I mean, it wasn't much
one
of a
of these,
series, to be honest. I was expecting more out of Gen.G, but
We all
to
were.
be honest, like we've been seeing Doran a little bit like on a heater recently, and I was like, okay, like
Hold up. That was fake news, Dom. Do you want to know the teams that Doran was on a heater against? Let me list them
one
off.
of them was T1. Yeah.
T1, which was without Faker. That was their first week without Faker. And their coach,
I didn't know. You know what I didn't know?
Literally quit like a couple hours before that match versus Gen.G. Okay.
What I didn't know is that Faker was actually microing Zeus the entire time. Now I know that Keria and Zeus are actually just complete fucking frauds, and just they're just not able to play the game. Faker was the reason why he FT so much is he's actually just looking top, looking bottom, like, oh yeah, you should hit that C. Oh yeah, go in here. Like he's literally just micromanaging his teammates all the time because they can't play lanes without him.
I'm sorry, T1 fans. Please, you should probably turn this one off.
All right, Dom, you ready for some extra ammo for you? In the second round robin of play, T1 has now lost to Gen.G. They have lost to D+. They've lost to Hanwha, and they've now lost to Breon. Their only win was a 2-0 over Nongshim.
I've VOD reviewed every single one of these on my stream.
I know you have the hater episode series. I've been enjoying it.
Yes, I have a new one. I mean, I actually go into the reasons why they're losing, and I don't think that Faker's going to come back and just magically fix all the problems. No. I think that they have more.
They were having these problems beforehand.
They were having these problems beforehand. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the first Nongshim series that they almost lost, like it didn't look good. But when you watch their coordination in fights, it's like they're just doing things that don't make sense for a cohesive or for what a cohesive unit should be. I mean, I broke down one of the team fights super in depth from T1. And the way that like they engage at 4v5, somebody uses a fucking complete combo, then owner just throws out his sigil, no one can hit, no one's in range, that like that's just completely absorbed for free. And then the next time, like, you know, everyone has their cooldowns down, carry goes forward, hooks, and they can't kill anyone. It's like there's just no coordination where they're using their abilities as one. It should be like, okay, we have our abilities, we throw our abilities. Okay, we missed our abilities, we step back. Okay, we have our abilities again, we walk forward, we try to hit our abilities. But it's just like everyone's just throwing out their shit randomly, and then like they want to see if anything sticks. And at the end of the day, like even if one person hits, because they're not coordinated and they're not looking for the same things at the same time, like there's no way to actually gain an advantage. Where when you look at Bro is actually doing a much better job of understanding what each player's job was in a team fight. Like Karis, for example, he's holding a 0 ult for the Jax to jump in. Jax jumps in, he has 0 ults. He's not going to 0 ult until Jax jumps in, because that is like the main thing that he is using his ability for. That's the relevance of his ability within the game. Like you can see in the fights that the Rakan is saving his spells. Rakan is saving his quickness for a time where the fight is going to be completely engaged. He's not looking for a pick when there's no reason to actually go in yet. And T1, it felt like everything was super off. I mean, the beginning of some of their Drake fights were literally just 3v5s. Like Zeus is basing. He's not even TPing and they're going early. He's basing to buy items to then TP. And by the time he TPs in, he's like, all right, I'm here, guys. And no one has any fucking ults. And people are missing like Gale Force, Flash, whatever the fuck. It's just so weird to watch T1. But yeah, back on the Gen.G.
I just needed to detour it for you there. I did that.
Yeah, you set me up. You set me up to flame T1. I appreciate that about you, Monty. The series of Gen.G versus KT, I mean, it just looks like Keen is a better player. You see Keen on the Renekton game too, and you know he has an advantaged matchup. Like obviously it's a good matchup. Renekton into Cassante is a good matchup, but he just does better in it than on the other side of it when Doran is playing into Keen's Jax. Like there's just actually no lead on the Renekton. The Renekton is just less useful than the Jax for the entire game. So it's just he's winning both sides. He could play the ass side of the matchup, he could play the power side of the matchup, and he's just always getting a lead. And Doran was just completely useless in those games. He was just completely useless.
Preach it, Dom. I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Keen for MVP, the most deserving player. And honestly, I really feel like this should probably flip a lot of people's votes around who are thinking about picking Pays or another Gen.G player, because KT, as a result of this 2-0, are now in first place in the LCK because they own the map score differential as well. And as far as the rest of the games go, KT plays Kwangdong and T1 this next week, both of which should be very easy in their current form. And the last week is Nongshim and Live Sandbox. So there's a real possibility that we go 8-0 here for the rest of KT.
Baby.
And Gen.G, Gen.G still has some hard matchups left. Gen.G has D+ and Hanwha Life. Hanwha's looking better and better. And the thing about D+,
And what about D+?
They always play Gen.G close. And they
even when they were
win.
good. Even when they were good, they were playing Gen.G close. So
yeah,
crazy.
but it's like even when D+ has been bad, they've been playing Gen.G close. It's something about the versatility of the Canyon and Showmaker
I think
pair.
it's just because Canyon is just so much better than Peanut. I literally think that Canyon is just so much better than Peanut that it's very uncomfortable to play.
Gen.G also does not great when there are weird picks, and that's what D+ does a lot of the time.
Here's a question. Who's the worst player on D+?
It is probably Kana.
And who's there to exploit the worst player on D+?
I think that is Doran's Gangplank you're referring to.
So I think that's like one of the issues. When you look like player by player, I feel like D+, like their players actually match up pretty evenly around the map, and like there's nowhere for like there's no one to really exploit D+. So for example, when D+ plays against KT or when they play against T1 when they're in form, it's fucking Zeus and Keen, and that's just a huge mismatch topside. So I think that this is like one of the reasons why they play better. Just player for player, they match up pretty well.
I think you could probably make an argument about Bible at this point in time because D+ is clearly hoping that his lackluster laning and occasional ability to get caught out is made up for by having improved late game shot calling. I'm not sure that's true from what I've seen of D+.
Like I watched D+ games. They are not good at closing out games. They are definitely not good at closing out games. So I feel like this is just a narrative that ran wild because of that clip when he was first subbed in last year where he was playing the Amumu and he was like, I'm going. Then everyone killed her like, holy shit, this guy is shot calling the shit out of the game. It's like, that's not like shot calling.
No.
The real shot calling is like setting things up and like getting yourself in a position to win.
It's not because of that clip. It's because the team itself and the players have made comments about him being significantly more vocal in comms and about setting up strategies.
So do they just not listen to him then?
Possibly.
Or does he just say, it's like he's shot calling? I mean, it's all bad shit that he says, but I mean, he is shot calling.
I mean, the argument might also be he's making plans and then he's stepping too far forward, dying, and then they can never execute on them. That's another possibility. Have you considered that one? The plan might be there, but he might fuck it up, right? So I don't know. I think this is an experiment that D+ has to run because I think they had probably reached their ceiling with Kellen in the roster, and they might put Kellen back in because they realize that the downside to having Bible in a weaker laning phase might be actually worse than what, or might be actually better rather than what they're getting right now. But I do think that this was a good time to experiment with it. And honestly, there's basically no risk, right? They're already locked for playoffs. They're not going to get top 2. So as long as they get top 4, they have a 2-game lead on T1. Who cares? You might as well experiment.
Shit. T1 is about to fucking lose to the Freaks. Don't they play the Freaks next week?
They play DRX and KT.
Oh yeah, then they play the Freaks the week after. So I mean, they're gonna lose. Absolutely, yeah, they'll lose to KT.
Here's the thing:
versus DRX, like who knows? They could lose.
But T1 only needs to win one more best of 3 out of 4. And they play DRX, KT, Kwangdong, and Live Sandbox. They will win one of those.
They absolutely will make playoffs. I mean, they're 7-7, and then there's 4 teams that are tied for 6 right now, and they're all 4-10. So like T1, I looked at this before because like as a hater, like I was just like, is there a chance of them not making playoffs? I couldn't even cope myself into a way that they don't make playoffs.
Technically possible, but it is so unlikely because also it's the map score differential that really like locks them in. And they will probably win a best of 3, and all they have to, even if they lose all their best of 3s, they're still probably in the playoffs, right? Yeah. It would take a very specific sequence of events. That said,
it's really unfortunate, isn't it, Monty?
If Breon, here's the thing: if Breon can get into that 6th spot, which I think that they can, they will be a better team heading into the playoffs than T1.
Yep.
Breon actually. The win that Breon got over T1 was very important to the playoff race for Fred or OK Savings Bank. They're not fretted anymore.
For the bros.
Okay, bros.
Time for the further callback before we close out Devoured, presented by Trolley. Dom, can you please explain what the other side of a matchup is? If one side is the ass side,
It's the. I mean, am I going to get canceled? Are you trying to set me up to get canceled? You have the good side and the ass side.
all right, cool. Thanks, man.
You have the
That's all I
side that
wanted.
should win, and then the side that should lose.
All right, thank you. All right, this has been Devoured, presented by Trolley. Make sure to head on over to trolley.com to find where you can also get your tongue-twisting, mind-warping sour thrills. Okay, cool.
All
That
right.
one's down. Let's move on next to our categories. All
Oh,
right.
wait, so what is actually the status of Faker? So it is like he's probably going to come back for playoffs now, is what they're saying?
I don't think they know, but that I don't see a reason to play Faker before playoffs because it's not going to change anything about T1's position. They're too far behind to like crack top 4 reliably, so you might as well just rest him for the maximum amount of time, I think is the logic.
Yeah, that's actually like pretty I mean, that's pretty convenient. That could be 4 more episodes of The Hater before playoffs even. That's some content. I like it.
What if he's good to go right now and they're actually scrimming with him, but then they just are resting him and letting Pooby play right now, you know? Slide
Possible.
that one in there? No? Okay.
I mean, maybe. Perhaps they should go take an LCS boot camp, just like quit with all of their roster, right? Go over to North America because they've already locked playoffs, right? I've done this before. That's how it works. It works really well.
Fair.
I wonder if the kids are young enough for that one. All right. Cool.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yeah. Never mind. All right. Bad idea. Good joke from Monty. Let's go to next up. It's, we followed and tracked these teams from around the world, but now we have proof to make definitive statements on who the biggest fraud is in this week's fraud alert. We've got 3 teams, and honestly, we could throw T1 in there because we've seen how bad it is.
Let's throw T1 in there. Let's do it.
All right, yeah, we've got 4 teams here up for our fraud alert this week. Who is the biggest fraud between OMG, Vitality, FlyQuest, and T1? Let's get into it.
All right, so here's the question. Who the fuck put OMG with Vitality and FlyQuest?
No. I put that in there. But we're supposed to rate the teams out of 10 as to how fraudulent they are. OMG is clearly the least fraudulent team, okay?
I always mess this one up. My bad. It is not the most or the least. It is on the fraudometer. Honestly, that's what our graphic should be. And then I'll remember this is a grading scale, not a like prize, like a medal, All right. Let's go. Let's start with OMG. So OMG, Don's been talking about all year. They show up. They have a hell of a series against a surging EDG. They're up 2-1. And like Dom also predicted, I think they overplay their hand and they end up losing the momentum of the series and they drop 3-2 to EDG. How fraudulent do we go with this team here, Dom?
Literally 0 out of 10. Like, if you think OMG is a fraudulent team, then you are completely delusional as to what the word fraudulent means. This is a team that shouldn't be close to top 6. If you look at LPL, and even if you look at like betting lines going into the season, OMG should not be a top 6 team in LPL. If you look at the teams they're playing against, think about the series they had to win in order to make it to top 6. They have to beat 2 world champs and the greatest AD carry of LPL in LPL history. Like, that is the series, and they lose by 1 game. Like, so that is the series they lose by 1 game. To me, it's more disappointing that what I said originally came true, which was this is going to be a hard series and it could go either way, and it went to 5 games and it looked like it could go either way. That if they lost to AL, which they should have lost to AL, they get a better side of the bracket. Because of the way LPL works, you don't get any choice. In LCS, in LEC, you get choice of who you play. Well, back when LEC had a different playoff format, when it had like the original playoff format that it had for years, you get to choose who you want to play. So you don't have an incentive to lose. The fact that they should have lost to AL to get a free win versus NIP, and then that free win versus NIP would have pretty much guaranteed them to go into the next round, I think that's complete bullshit. I generally just really dislike the idea that you benefit by losing. And like, sure, maybe like EDG then cleans them up in Gauntlet or something, but I think it's really shit that they went 4th in spring and 7th in summer, and that equals not enough points to make top 6 over a team that could have potentially went 17th in spring and 6th in summer. Like, how does that make any sense if you just think about how like the format works? So I would say like OMG is just 0 out of 10 fraudulency. Like, they were 11-5 and they lost by 1 game to EDG.
I think they do get 1 or 2 points of fraudulency because they still should have been able to take the win over EDG. EDG is a team that has been really troubled for most of the season of LPL compared to the spring split, including losing their up-and-coming star player who was the best performing player. I do think that the meta kind of swung in EDG's favor in that top laners do have a lot of agency to carry right now, and Ale has had like a pop-off kind of end to the season as well as playoff run. So that has been working in EDG's favor. But for the most part, like, they were struggling at the AD carry position early on in the split when they made the replacement. Uzi had to shake off the rust from coming out of retirement. And, you know, Fofo wasn't very good for a lot of summer. So I still think that OMG was the favorite going into this series. And especially because, as we talked about last week, the meta seems like it's really quite good for OMG overall. Like, there's a lot of potential to use some of their more niche champions in more meta ways. And while we did see some of that in this series, including...
Yeah, I think it's actually bad for them overall. To be
really?
Like, when I analyze the meta, so I think it's good in terms of they play the champions, but I think that the way that it's bad is now that Rumble is just considered OP and like 90% of the teams are banning Rumble, and it's
not a pocket anymore.
Yeah, it's not a pocket pick anymore. So every team when they're scrimming is just like, yeah, we just ban Rumble. Like, you can make that one of your bans and you didn't lose anything. Whereas before you had to make a bunch of these like decisions of what we actually take and what do we give. And then when you look at like mid lane, Cream's whole playstyle, like his champions are just not good right now. Back when he was coming up and like what he was really good at last split, what were his best champions? Akali, Silas, and Ari. And right now it's a bunch of like LeBlanc.
Well, Yone is still very strong right now overall.
I don't think Yone is that good. I don't think Yone is that good right now. I think the problem with Yone is it's pretty much only playable into Azir. Like, you shouldn't be able to get away with Yone into LeBlanc. LeBlanc is just a counter to that champion. And then when you think about like Nico as well, that's another annoying pick for you. So I feel like all the like champions that are strong right now, we're essentially in a Azir Jace meta with like some LeBlanc, some Tristana, and Cream's been able to pick up those champions, and he's gotten good enough at them where he's like, he looks like he's like a good player still, but it's not his specialty. Like, the thing that makes him a special player is the fact that he can play the Akali, play the Silas, and all this stuff. And then on like the other side of things, I think that like bot lane underperformed considering like the meta picks, but all the picks that Aki was good at before, you know, like Wukong is out of the meta. He was like Wukong one trick, like Vi is starting to fall in prio. So when I look at like what they're best at, I just don't think that this enables their best champions to carry. And then the other thing I would say is Gen.G is not a good Renekton player, and Renekton is back in the meta, and Renekton is an answer to Cassante, whereas before there wasn't an answer to Cassante besides for like Jax, and it just makes the Cassante pick less attractive, which is one of Gen.G's pockets as well. So I would say the meta is like mediocre for them, like to bad if you consider how everything is actually going to shape up in a draft phase.
So I think that at least in the hands of specialists right now, we have seen the Yone do very well, especially with a lot of the when you can actually execute it with a dive composition. So I think it's a really good pick to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, if you have like, for example, a Rumble top. That's what we see with a lot of the time, right? That's what we saw with Hanwha Life played it, right? Like that's the combo.
I mean, the two big Yone teams are Hanwha and OMG. You know, Zeka's 7-1 on the Yone this split, yep. And Cream is 4-1. And actually, globally, they're 14-2. Yone is 14-2 across all major leagues, and the other instances we've seen are in the LCS. So Insanity, Licorice, and Palafox have all played at one time, and those have all been wins. So I think among the Yone teams, it is a really valuable and scary tool. And we did, in fact, see how good it can be in this series, especially in that third game where OMG was like on the ropes a little bit, and then they managed to pull off, the epic engage. And it just if you can get angles with a lot of crowd control, you can just hit those giant wombo combo ultimates that are really exciting. And teams that play Yone are accustomed to doing that. And that broke that entire game. It really flipped the narrative of that game when Uzi was kind of getting scary on that vein from the early game.
Dom, I wanted to ask you a question. Never mind. I'll save that question for later on. So OMG on the fraudulent meter, at most a 2.
Yeah.
I mean, this team is not supposed to be top 6 in LPL. That's part of the reason why I love them so much, is they got there. They got there by rebuilding. Like, they just rebuilt with people that you've never heard of. Like, maybe you've heard of if you follow like LDL in China or some shit. But like, Abel was essentially a bust. He was considered like a fucking draft bust. He was supposed to be the next Uzi on RNG. He wasn't that guy. His value wasn't super high within LPL. He goes to OMG, who was at the time was a bottom tier team. You have Cream, who's a 17-year-old mid lane assassin only player. Aki, a player that came out of LPL. Cold, who was like this fucking mega old veteran at the point that looked like he was way past his prime. Like, he was with the OMG in like 2017 and he was just still there. And then at the time they had New and Makuya, which were both just getting stomped all the time. So if you see like the way that they developed and like got actually better, that's rare. Like, if you look at LPL talent, how many teams are made up of players that actually get to the top that aren't stars, that aren't like world champs, LPL champs? Like, look at every other team that's left right now. Look at every other team that's left in the LPL right now. Here, let me just go through them. Okay. So right now you have BLG, who is Yagao, who's a multi-LPL champion. You have Bin, who's an LPL champion and MSI champion and a world finalist and a MSI finalist on top of that, right? You have Shun, who, he's new. Elk and On, who, like, these players were going deep in play. Like, Elk and On were going, not deep. I would say Elk was going deep in playoffs 2 years ago, and On is, like, pretty new. But you have, like, 2 players that are already, like, insane. And then when you look at every team, it's even more, it's more extreme. JDG, a bunch of multi-time LPL champions.
Yep.
Now you have like the best AD carry of all time, who's won MSI and Worlds. Like, it's just ridiculous. You look at LNG. Oh, who do we have on LNG? Oh, we have a 2-time MSI champion. We have Scout, a fucking world champion. We have
back-to-back MVP of LPL now.
Back-to-back MVP. You have Gala, who won 2 LPL titles. You have Scout, who's won an LPL title. Well, I don't know. He's won probably multiple LPL titles, actually. Then you look at top esports, you have Rookie, one of the best mid laners of all time, like, speaks for himself. World champ, Jackie Love, world champ, Tian, world champ. Like, this is like who is left. Like, you look at this shit, it's just like world champs out the ass. Like, everyone's got MSI champs, world champs. Like, everyone has these
with Xiaohu, MSI, the Shy, Worlds. Yeah.
Weibo, I mean, you just made the point for
Crisp
me
as well.
Yeah, and then the team that ended up being top 6 over them. So those are the 5 teams. The team that they ended up losing to is EDG, where obviously, like, Fofo is weaker. Uzi is not in the form that he was supposed to be in. They still have.
He's still a 2-time world finalist.
Yeah, he's still a 2-time world finalist and MSI champion. You have like Mako, who's a world champion, JJ, who's a world champion, who out jungled probably the GOAT jungler at that point in world finals. Like, this is like, it's different when you get into LPL. You go to other leagues, you go into LPL, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's really different when you hit top 6 of LPL. So that's like why I don't consider it fraudulent, because they're not supposed to be there, but they got there by being unique and playing a game that no one else is playing. So
yeah,
they lost by 1 game to EDG. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Also, arguably should have won the series.
Yeah, they could have. Like, they had a bad day. And they lost by 1 game. Like, it wasn't like they showed up and got shit stomped 3-0 or something. Like, they like, JJ was having a fucking monster day, and they lost by 1 game.
In that roster creation you talked about, in terms of EDG, it's like, oh, OMG went up against 2 world champs and the best AD carry in the region. I mean, move Double Lift on over to Team Liquid, and you got the same thing here.
Pretty much.
All right. OMG. Now, Dom has talked us off the fraudulent meter. I think that toned it down. Let's go up next. The team that has been idle the most, waiting for their fate to be sealed, which was sealed this past week with the playoffs. Vitality. They are done for the year. And I think with that comes a pretty high fraudulency score here, Monty.
Especially because the number of iterations we've seen from this roster, especially when you consider that both them and XL were highly touted coming into this year in LEC, but XL went from 10th place to 10th place to at least 4th place right now, right? That's
At least third.
At least third.
Oh, at least third place. You're correct. Yeah, at least third place right now. So this is obviously a huge improvement for XL. And I do appreciate the fact that we saw Vitality continue to make roster changes, but whatever is fundamentally broken on this roster, and unfortunately, over the past couple of years, I think we know what the constant of this roster is. And as much as it pains me to say it, that you might just need to not have perks anymore.
Yep.
Which sucks a lot. But when it's just been disappointment after disappointment relative to the cost of the roster. And I say that knowing that at times Perks has been one of the better performing individual players on this roster, but his form hasn't been super consistent. And there's just something about having everything revolve around Perks' decision-making around the roster moves that isn't creating synergy or an environment that is conducive to letting these players flourish or for them to develop a serious play style. So I don't know. It hurts. Like, I think Vitality, obviously, how could you have been more hyped for them this year than with the Bow edition? And then especially too, when they made when they made the upset swap, really looked like, okay, this is the move that is going to send Vitality to the top. And so I guess by this split, if we're just saying like the most recent split, are they fraudulent? It's pretty disappointing because they at least ended the spring split with a good regular season record, even though they kind of bombed out in the later stages of the split. But they were just absolutely awful during summer. So I would say this is like probably like a 9.
Yeah, this is a 10 for me.
Hugely fraudulent.
They got 10th place with one of the most expensive rosters, like superstar in like somebody who, like we talked about the other side of it with OMG, where like all their competition is champions. This roster
and also LEC isn't that good this year either, so like it's even easier to win.
I mean, you have Kaiser who's won 2 splits, and then you have Perks who's won like 9 or something ridiculous. Like it's just, you got to do better than this. You can't be 10th place in this league. I mean, we like Evie is top 4 in this league right now.
Peach is top 4.
Peach is top 3. Yeah, Peach is top 3. And Evie is top 4.
And Peach, they figured it out, man. They figured out how to play as a team somehow better than Vitality. That is wild.
Of course they did. They looked at what they need from their players, and they're like, all right, Peach, like when Peach was really struggling and he was running it down, like his first games in summer were absolutely terrible. They just put him on Maokai duty. And then Vitality did the opposite. They're like, oh, we have a really talented individual player. Okay, he's the one that goes on Maokai duty. It's like, no. The Maokai duty is supposed to be for Kaiser in this situation. Put Kaiser on Maokai duty. Put Perks on his fucking like Annie Nico duty.
In playoffs, all he's doing is playing Ornn and Renekton. So he's either playing one of the most busted champs in lane right now that isn't very mechanically demanding.
Unskilled champions.
Or he's playing the Ornn, who just sits under turret and teleports back when he gets low, and then has to hit an ult, which, to be fair, Evie did do a relatively good job at, and then just wait to scale. And then what's his job? Building items for his teammates, right?
Evie Chads, don't worry. We'll get to LEC playoffs in just a little bit, so hold tight. This is, though, the interactive part of the show. So if you're watching live right now, we're grading Vitality. Don't give any context. Just put the number of fraudulency out of 10. Just type it in. Also, if you're watching,
people are going to do like 12 out of 10. It's like we rate dogs, but we rate frauds.
Yeah.
12 out of 10. Bad fraud.
If you're watching the VOD, help us out with our discoverability and our interactivity by writing the number and then underneath reply to yourself why. Like help us out there. A couple good ones that we've seen. We've seen Perks out of 10, Upset out of 10, 75 out of 10. I don't know why I picked that one. Was pretty good, but this is pretty good interactivity here. I think this one has a strong feeling. This is making everyone feel strong feelings here, guys.
Yeah, to Dom's point too about OMG. this split or this year of LPL has been really stacked, and there are a lot of really fucking good teams in the LPL. And so it's even harder for OMG to crack the upper echelons, right? This is the freest
and they
year.
literally did last split.
Yeah,
Like
this
they
is
were top
this
four
is
last
the
split.
this is the freest year of LEC in some time. And so if you suck in the freest year of LEC, truly you are free, Vitality.
Yeah. Honestly, Heretics was sucking in the freest year of LEC, and now they're the ones, they figured it out. They benefited up. So there you have it. One of the numbers here, Monty, as we'll continue the segment, but we're evolving here on the show. One of the numbers that we saw was 69 out of 10. And I
Very
think
good.
we have some friends that might help us with some.
That's right. If you
420.
think that Vitality is 420 out of 10 fraudulent, you can go and get a freeze pipe, which will, of course, cool your smoke by over 300 degrees if you put its food-safe glycerin chamber in the freezer an hour before you smoke it. And you can get 10% off of anything. Look at that beautiful pieces of glassware on your screen right now. You can get any of them for 10% off, or all of them. You can buy them all and get 10% off your entire order with promo code LFN at thefreezepipe.com. Thank you, Dgon. That was a very good setup.
Thank you. Do you have one at your house, Monty?
I do.
I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Here's its food safe glycerin chamber. And I could put this in, and then my friend Dgon can come over in an hour and we could join together.
Yeah, and then we could go watch Vitality VODs.
I think that might not be that. Normally I don't like to watch things that are horrific right after I enjoy that. So perhaps we will avoid that. It might be a little too disturbing, Dgon.
This is true. I was thinking about what would make me want to melt into the couch, and it's like definitely watching Bo and the week before he gets benched. That was
it's painful.
All right, let's move forward. We've got two more teams to go through for our fraudulent alert. This one I don't think will take too long. Again, interactivity. T1. Fakerless T1. That is where we're going with fraudulency, because this is not Booby's fault. This is the 4 other players' fault.
I like that.
All right? We got to rate the fraudulency of Zeus, supermodel owner, Gumayushi, and the biggest brain carrier. Where are we at with this one?
Monty, you start.
I think it's probably like a 7 out of 10. Because, and I'm talking about this split, T1 was coming off of a really disappointing playoff performance domestically. And then also, I wouldn't say the most disappointing MSI run, because they did take Gen.G to 5 games and they were the only team to do so. But that said, we obviously didn't expect, to Dom's point earlier, the players to turn into pumpkins in terms of laning phase when Faker left. Like, I think that's been the weirdest part. So they must be. I think Zeus has been playing better outside of the first week that they lost Faker. So he at least his laning phase is looking more like we're accustomed to. But I do think you get to see how great Faker's impact is on his teammates in terms of T1's play style, the way that they were playing their macro in the mid and late game, Faker's intelligence about predicting where players would be on the map to set up traps. And that was really like a lot of the core of their style. And nobody else has been able to replace that shot calling and voice. Not even Carrier, who we thought probably was doing some of that shot calling. So for me, it's a combination of probably tilt over the situation, habitual underperformance, and the loss of Faker. And I think this roster is just mental boomed and done. I don't think you can run back this roster again because, now they've lost so many finals that they've been a part of. You just need to refresh it so that there's some level of hope and confidence again. Because I think this roster now, even if they do somehow make it back into a final, which I think is very unlikely, I think they just mental boom again. So I think this iteration of T1's roster is done, and it's going to be about rebuilding for next year. And obviously they're going to keep Faker because now we know how important he is to the overall construction of this team.
This is pretty interesting in terms of like teams that stick together. This maybe is like a because we don't normally get to see this. This could be like a risk, a side effect of it. If they boom so early in the qualifying weeks, you can't recover. This is it. Like,
I think it's very unlikely T1 goes to Worlds.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think they could get it together and beat out like Hanwha or D plus potentially.
I think Hanwha looks better every week that they play. So I think D plus is probably the closest one.
Okay. Well, here's what I would say. So like I think that from like reasonable takes, they're probably like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 fraudulency. But what happens if you compare them to what they were last split and you look at what the players were rated? These were considered the 5 best individual, not the best team. They're considered the 5 best individual players.
I mean, to be fair, the Korean All-Pro selections are often jokes. It's because the Korean voters value so highly like teamwork that they just fucking will vote on the number 1 team every single time, right? And this is, I think it's a big problem in the perception of the way you evaluate good players, because they are unwilling to even consider the fact that very good players on bad rosters might be first team All-Pro candidates.
I mean, okay, so my main point is this, right? Like Keria was also the MVP. I feel
think
like
he deserved it. Of the regular season? Of the regular season, he deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, he like what was he good at? He was playing like all these Callista lanes, like he was playing Callista support, Ashe support, Twitch support. We don't talk about Twitch support, Caitlyn support. He was playing all these different picks, and he was giving them this like power bot lane where it's like, how the fuck do we lane against these guys? Like, what do we draft? They always have something. Like they can flex all these champions. They can early pick Kate, early pick Callista, and then they just flex it into support. If it's ever a bad matchup, they just fucking stomp us and dive bot. When I look at like this team now, I don't even know who they are anymore. Like where is Keria? What happened to Keria? I don't see any like semblance of that gameplay he had before. Like it's just weird. It's like, does he not have confidence in winning lane anymore? Like obviously they had that good lane versus like Dgon, but in general, it just doesn't feel like they play to smurf on lane. It doesn't feel like Zeus is this like carry top laner who's dicking everyone. It looks like he's permanent finals or something. It's just really weird to watch him play. So just watching their games, I don't know. I feel like for what they're supposed to be by far the best team in Korea, and they're supposed to have the best player in every single role. Like, where is that? You're telling me that Faker was the only thing holding it all together? That makes you look really fraudulent, man. Like they lost to DRX. Sure, you could say the DRX game was, when they just got Faker out, so maybe they have more problems then. But I mean, you've now been practicing with this roster for what, 3 weeks, and you can't even beat fucking bro. You can't beat bro.
Hey,
cook him. Keep cooking.
No,
Keep cooking,
Breon.
baby.
I have said that Breon is a sleeper team and that they've actually been improving pretty significantly. And Breon didn't really have that far to go to start taking wins off of some of the playoff teams, because they would often have very significant early game advantages. They would just get caught out in the late game and then throw. So if they fix some of those issues, which I think they are slowly fixing, it's not outrageous that they would actually, kind of level up and be able to take these games. Number 2, I think the psychic damage was just snowballing against T1. Like I said,
what is that?
Well, no, seriously, how many like mind blasts do they have to take? The expectations are for them to win. They came in.
I feel so bad for them, man. Like they're supposed to have the best player in every role. They have like the biggest.
It's
fucking
not about feeling bad
so
for
hard
them.
To be on T1.
It's not. It's not about feeling bad for them. It's just about how many times can you? I mean, they've won 1 title, and it was a year ago. And they lost MSI as the favorites, lost Worlds as the favorites, lost Spring as the favorites. I don't think they were the favorites going into this MSI, but they also got bombed out by BLG in the losers bracket of MSI.
Fucked, didn't they? That was crazy.
They did. So, I mean, I think that the combination of all of these things happening, and then this is just the mental damage straw that broke the camel's back, was losing Faker and your head coach in the same week. Like, I think that this is a depressed team right now. I think the team atmosphere is probably pretty bad. And I think that if you were already at this level of disappointment and then you had to cope through this as well, I think you're just boomed.
Oh, we can only hope. Can only hope.
Oh man, that was such a great front row seat to the cooking. Both of you actually were cooking in that one. Dom, I thought this was just going to be a Dom rant segment, but Monty brought up some good defensive points on why it happened. But that was
It was really good. You set me up to like go even deeper into the hatred, because if I didn't have those, Monty, I wouldn't be able to argue on multiple different levels. You know, I might have just ended up like, look at how good they were, look at how bad they are now. They're frauds, you know. But now I can like really go into like why
You're a
the
very
team is
eloquent guy, Dom. I know you can go deep on these issues.
Oh yeah, I go deep on them all the time. I do
I
it
know
for
you
about an
do.
hour and a half every twice a week at this point.
Your stamina is amazing. Your stamina is amazing.
Yeah, you know.
Let's go, Faker. Woo!
Oh wow.
All right. Shout out to my
Would I
boy
have to
Lee.
pay
who's
you,
watching.
Dgon, to light that on fire right now?
No, there's no way. Joe will find me.
Okay. All right.
I don't want that. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Monty's got his. Do you have your KT stuff? Can we wear it next week? All right. Next week,
sure. I have to go dig it out of a box in the garage here, but yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't move to Denver in a box. That moves on your body. I want you to
thrilled about
recognize
KT
in the
though.
airport.
fucking hell yeah, Keen. I'm so happy.
All right. Finally, in our fraudulent alert, one more team that I think needs no introduction because they spend a lot of money on content and media to help introduce themselves and their new ownership. It's FlyQuest time, everybody. How fraudulent is FlyQuest on a scale of 1 to 10? How fraudulent?
That's a 10. How is it not a 10? You're a super team. Like you can't not make playoffs if you are one of the highest paid like especially at the scale we're doing. If we're calling OMG a team that like should like that went 11-5 and lost one BO5 by one game, like if we're calling them a 2, how the fuck are you not a 10 if you're 6-12 with a superstar roster? Like think about how bad. Okay, so here's the question. This is how we know that they're guaranteed a 10. Monty, what would you have rated Team Liquid last year on the fraudulency scale when they got fourth place? They got fourth place.
Goodness, yeah.
Like a 9 or a 10.
5 and lost. They're a 9 or a 10?
Yep, they were.
FlyQuest is a fucking 20 then. They're a fucking 20. We're going 9 or 10 on a team that got fourth. They got 9th.
All right. Well, we rate frauds 20 out of 10 for FlyQuest. Look, it's hard to argue this because how could this team have really performed worse given the roster that they had? So let's roll it back. They pick up Vikla, who is the rookie of the year from LCK, or rookie of the split. Mm-hmm. And so he's an up and coming promising player. Prince is an MVP candidate on a mid-tier team in LCK because he is so good. He's actually converting so much of he gets a massive amount of resources and converts them into wins. He is the shining star of Live Sandbox, a team that, by the way, almost went to Worlds instead of DRX. Okay.
And he's the second best AD carry in the region at that point. Ruler is God tier. Who's the second best AD carry in the region at that point? It's Prince.
Yeah,
right?
He was very good. So we have these two rising stars coming out of the LCK. Not only that, I was actually pleased to see Prince as a player going to LCS because Prince is very outgoing, and I knew that he would have an easier time kind of handling himself. I don't think he would go through a severe culture shock coming over to North America. Number 3, they signed Spica, who is one of the prize free agents.
And former MVP.
And former MVP, who is kind of ELO held on previous teams. So there's a lot of promise for him. Then you get the most stable player and a weak side player. So you're actually building towards Prince's strengths, right? Low economy, extremely stable, always shows up in playoffs, top laner and impact, right? And then, okay, you have a shitty support problem in spring where, you have these issues, so you can't get the support you want. Both your supports end up looking quite bad. Then you replace it with a top 2 support in the league by getting Vulcan.
Multi-time champion, multi-time all-pro first team.
Not an import, hugely crucial player in LCS roster construction because he has been so solid. You spend all this money, you put together this roster that looks really dominant in spring, and people think, especially with Vulcan, easy first place favorites in a very weak LCS. And they get outplayed by TSM that is literally on all minimum salaries trying to fire sell their spot in the LCS.
That that sold the fucking split by subbing in Ruby for 3 games and just taking 3 free losses. They played with fucking Ruby on their team. No, they're not even a 20. They're a fucking 30 in fraudulency.
Oh, no.
This is as fucking fraudulent as you can be. How do you look like LCS?
Dom, is this the most fraudulent team in the history of League of Legends?
I would say this is the most fraudulent team in the history of League of Legends. And people will look at Vitality and stuff like that. But the difference is this. You're playing in the fucking LCS, man. You're playing in the LCS. Immortals, they're not even trying. 100 Thieves look fucking terrible. They even had like visa issues. They had to play with their own fucking coach. Dignitas just added Rich, one of the worst players in LPL. Literally, like, they gave him 1 game and they're like, please just leave our team. Like, we are starting invincible for the rest of his life. They get that guy, and he's somehow like leading their team. And then TSM has Hanser and Wildturtle, who they just brought back from the fucking dead, like some necromancy bullshit. Insanity, who's been like, he was ejected down to fucking amateur, bro. He didn't even go academy. He went amateur. He had to work his way back, play amateur. Then he finally got academy this year, and then he makes it back to LCS. How the fuck? Ruby was on this. Ruby played games on this team. Ruby played games. Like, you don't understand. Like, he played actual games this split. They literally inted on purpose, and they still were 2 games down on team. Like, it is so inconceivable for a team with 5 like star level players to be this bad. You're the most fraudulent team in the history of fraudulency. Like, you might be competing with like pro sports teams. Like, I don't know if there's ever been a team of 5 players at anything in the history of mankind that have been this bad together.
Who are this good individually. Let's put it that way.
That are this good individually.
Also, just what the fuck is going on with Vikla, where he can just grind out all these solo queue games, be #1 in solo queue, and then just play like absolute shit on the LCS stage.
It's appalling. It's appalling.
Also, we didn't even
World
mention the fact that they got.
Like,
that's what I was about to say. How do you how do you
the layers of fraudulence? You just peel back 1 layer and they become even more fraudulent under. Like, they're the biggest fucking catfish known to man.
They're the onion of fraudulency with 1,000 layers.
Yeah. All right. Time for real life examples. That's what I want, both in the chat and in the comments. If you're watching this later, give me real life examples of fraudulent super teams that have failed. Someone said they're the Brooklyn Nets of the of it, which is Brooklyn true, right?
Nets were going to playoffs when they had like when they had the lineup, right? The
Durant,
Brooklyn
Harden,
Nets, Durant, Harden, Irving. They were going to playoffs.
Yeah, look,
they didn't go to playoffs.
You guys, you have to come up with an example that would be in the bottom 20% of the league.
People are saying PSG. That's not it either.
Yeah, no, like. Like, do you know how bad you have to be the bottom 20%? That's like if you had a record like the Houston Rockets or some shit, or like the Spurs last year, but you had a team made. It's like if the Lakers were actually that bad. Like, I mean, even in 2021, AD was hurt. Like, players were getting hurt. They weren't playing the fucking games. They had all their players. Like, FlyQuest had all their players. I don't understand it. It's so inconceivable. It's so inconceivable when you can start looking at what region they're playing in. Prince almost made Worlds. He was a superstar in LCK. He didn't make top 8 in LCS. Like, he could play with literal academy players. They should still be able to make it. It's horrible. I can't. Let's move on.
I hope you guys at home hear how much urgency there is in Dom's brain to get the words that he's thinking out of his mouth because of how frustrated he is with this.
I really can't. You don't understand. People don't know during the show, but I'm 13 hours in. I've just been talking League for 13 hours straight. Like, no break. 13 hours I've just been talking League. Now
I know. I know you want to move on, but there's a couple of other really good examples that are here that are like popping up. Someone said like the Lakers with Kobe, Nash, and Dwight. The Angels currently with Ohtani and Mike Trout, 2 of the best baseball players in the planet. That's probably it. Someone said the Shanghai Dragons, but they
were bums, man. They were not a super team.
Yeah. The turnaround, that's cool, but that's not the example that we're looking for here. Okay. There it is. Our fraudulency FlyQuest ending up winning this one, but all of them fraudulent except OMG. We threw one in there, but it didn't quite work out. Oh, that's a good one. Actually, Monty, I do have to say the the Denver Broncos of last year. We
mean,
had
the Broncos,
so many receivers. We had Russell Wilson. We had a top defense.
Yeah, they were super injured though. And at least the Broncos actually, they had a bunch of wins against playoff teams. That was the weird part.
They had a chance.
I mean, they beat the Niners, they beat the Jaguars, they beat the Chargers. So,
all right. Thank you to all of our friends here that are on top of the sports references across the world. You could also go with just groups of people. You know, if there's a group of people that you're thinking of, or like a motley crew that was supposed to be good at something and they were terrible at something, you could throw that out there at us in the comments. All right. Next up, we will knock these last two segments out because Dom's brain is turning into eggs right in front of us. We got the Galaxy Brain Club discussion, which is convenient timing for Dom. The LEC, LPL, and LCS playoff predictions as it's coming up very, very soon. Let's get into it. Someone threw out Enron levels of fraud. That's pretty good.
That's good. I like
that. All right.
Theranos. It's really the FlyQuest is the Elizabeth Holmes of fraud.
They're worse than the burgers at the Chum Bucket from SpongeBob. This is pretty. These are good. These are good. All right. Let's go back to LEC so that we can go straight to Dom's second least favorite player in the world behind Ruby. It's Heretics and Evie. They made it on out. They've got a matchup, a winnable matchup here against Fnatic.
Playing well. Oh no, I don't want to talk about it.
Well. Is he playing well, or is he just playing Renekton and Ornn?
I mean, he's playing like the thing is he was even bad on those champs, but he's like he was only 2K gold down in one of the games. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like he's perfect. You know, they showed some stats. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but they showed stats on the broadcast. And the thing that's so criminal, so Evie was obviously last place in every stat, which is expected. But the thing that was unexpected about the stats they showed is that he's also third in jungle proximity, meaning that Jankos is like permanently top and helping him, and he's still the worst top laner by far. It's like, god damn, they did him dirty. So I respected that, but I guess he just, I don't know, he beat Adam's ass. Like, it's weird because I was an Adam hater last year, and now I'm an Evie hater this year, so that Adam is like losing to Evie, so I don't know how to feel. It was really conflicting. It was a tough time to be a hater. I mean, like, just think about my day. I went from fucking OMG losing into this bullshit. Like, this was just hell on earth. But I mean, I have to say, Evie was like his Renekton game versus Olaf. He did well. I mean, it looks like he deserved to be in top 4. I guess.
Did you just say it? Do we really I feel like we just made a breakthrough.
I think it more is a reflection on the quality of LEC than it is a compliment to Evie.
That is the real pessimistic angle. I like that, Monty. As a fellow pessimist, I completely agree. Evie is not good. It's just that LEC is so bad it makes Evie look decent.
Well, I think Evie's run is going to be over with the way that Fnatic at least bounced back and decided that they wanted to play League of Legends this week. So I think the Cinderella run, I think we're headed towards a G2 Fnatic clash in the finals. As long as Fnatic doesn't randomly DC all their players, or at least humanoid from the games like we saw in the earlier one. They did. I think they bounced back pretty well. So at least I have a mild hope for Fnatic. I don't think that anybody's going to be able to take G2 down in those finals, but
the Excel series today is less about Excel and more about G2 just kind of digging around and being cocky, so that you think Fnatic will skip by it? You don't think Excel learned something from that?
I think G2 again was mostly losing to themselves today, and I think you can reflect on what you did, practice some different champions and different compositions for next week, rejigger your draft priority, and probably come out in a much better place.
All right. This first matchup, Fnatic versus Heretics. This is a let me scroll up to figure out how to fucking say this thing. Season finals play-in match. The team that loses is out for the year. The team that wins will make the season finals. And then Koi is now the one in the hot seat, waiting to see if Excel wins or if the Fnatic / Heretics team winner wins. So we'll keep that one in mind moving forward. G2 taking it all here, Dom.
I hope so. Can they do it in at least like 4 games max this time? Like, do I really have to sit through 5 of these motherfuckers? Even if you're gonna win 5 games, like if it's gonna take all 5 games, just make the games more reasonable. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were doing today, but yeah, I think G2 win.
All right. Let's move forward here to the LPL, the most brutal playoff bracket out of everyone's. Dom, we've got BLG, Top Esports, and JDG already waiting, with BLG and JDG having the seeds for the double elimination. Tonight's matchup, LNG versus Weibo. How do you feel like this one goes? And Monty, I feel like we know which way you want this one to go.
I know which way I want it to go.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I wasn't too impressed by Weibo in the NIP series, so I think LNG is probably going to win. But
yeah, I mean, the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is like LNG kind of has that choker vibe about them. Like when you look at the last playoff, I mean, they were in the same spot last playoffs, right? They played against OMG. And just the series, they look like they were underperforming.
They have a better roster this time, though.
They have a better roster. Like, I mean, they've won. Yeah, I mean, they've won different player. I mean,
they replaced their worst player.
Sure. I mean, I don't think that LP was the reason I think they were losing. The reason they lost to OMG is because Aki completely outjungled Tarzan. And you saw how Aki looked in this playoff series versus EDG. And I mean, that should not have happened. I mean, Tarzan was supposed to be the best jungler in LPL. They're supposed to be the best mid jungle in LPL in spring. And Tarzan and Scout were fundamentally outplayed through an entire series by Aki and Cream. And if they get outplayed again, which can happen because Xiaohu is on his shit. Weibo looked bad. The Shy looks bad. But Xiaohu looked fucking good. Looked fucking good.
The Shy was just, I don't know, man. Like, he just can't help himself, can he, in some of these games? Like, just looking that bad versus NIP is pretty shameful. And honestly, like, this is a top carry meta. Like, we are seeing the best top laners in the world right now have massive effects on games. Having a versatile top laner and a top laner who is capable of both tanking and carrying is such a huge advantage. We're seeing junglers, because of the meta, hit up top side significantly more frequently, right? We're seeing mid laners roam up to top side significantly more frequently. There are massive hyper carries you can play in top lane right now. Look at the predominance of Jack's picks. And so Rumble, right? When you have a player like the Shy, who, because top lane is so volatile as a lane, if he just randomly ints, which he does constantly, he just continues to int because that's how top lane works. And then the game can just be over. Like, we're not in a meta right now where you can stabilize even with low gold or a losing matchup and like come back. You know, this is why Keen is dominating in LCK. It's not only that he's good, it's that the meta is enabling him. It's why players like Ale and Bin have been so good recently in LPL.
They could take it and snowball run with it.
I mean, I think Zika is just a better player than the Shy, like, objectively at this point. Maybe the Shy has some insane performance, but Zika, like, he's not just a weak side top laner. He can play Jax, he can play Gwen. Like, he just does his job. He knows his job. He just does his fucking job. He's stable.
Is an extraordinarily consistent player. And that's what he's like Impact of the LPL. You know,
he's fucking 19, but okay. Yeah. Or is he 20 now? Did he have his birthday yet?
He's
happy birthday, July birthday. 2 weeks ago, he actually turned 20. Oh, he's 20 now. He's an old man at this point. So.
I really like Zika because he's one of those role players on a team that you can really build around because he's just so fucking reliable. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Is he going to be the flashiest player in a game? No, he's not. But you can just then, if you have Tarzan, Scout, and Gala, you don't need him to be that guy. He just needs to do his job. And he basically always does his job.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, he's another player. Think about like that IG team. He was the top laner. It was him and Shun on that IG team that was like 14th, 15th place. What did they place in summer of 2022? I mean, it's got to be, yeah, I mean, let me go back and check exactly, but it was not good. Okay, technically it was a 13th place. Yeah, I mean, they're 13th place with the roster of Zika, Shun, Yukai, and Mole were like switching, and then Wink and On. Like that was their roster. I think that this guy is really good, and I don't think that it's like he can't carry. I just think he doesn't need to carry on this team, but he can play carry champions in a weak side way, which is really useful. You could put a Jax there or a Gwen there, and you don't always need to win your lane. I mean, I think a perfect example of this is Keen. How many times does Keen play Jax? And he doesn't play to like stomp his opponent in lane with Jax. He's just doing better than he should. He's just farming 10 CS a minute with Jax, and then, you know, he's just ahead of the pace of the game. He gets 2 items on time, goes into a team fight and smurfs. And I think that, okay, I was talking to Bwippo, and he said something that was really insightful about top lane. I think a lot of times people feel in top lane like they need to shit on their opponent, but a lot of times in top lane, it's better to just play like a game where you get a lot of gold. Certain champions like Gwen and Jax, people think of like they need to be ahead, but they don't really need to be ahead. They just need a lot of gold themselves. So it's okay if you get a lot of gold and the other guy gets a lot of gold a lot of the time with these champions, because they scale so well in the game. Sure. So I think that good players are able to find ways to be relevant, make themselves strong without actually needing resources. And that's how you weak side on carry picks. You just make sure that you get a lot of gold and you don't take risk in the lane that could potentially lead to you losing gold.
Someone said the boss approach. I don't know if that's the right analogy.
No.
Here
I mean, kind of, but like, you don't want to like turbo snow. I mean, yeah. All right. You know what? Fuck that point. We just don't even talk about that point anymore. I mean, you know, if you get it, you get it. If not, we just move on. We're 14 hours deep. Like,
all right, we're going. So at the end of the day, anybody beat JDG? I'm saying no. I think top is moving into a meta that is not very preferable for them, because I think that, I mean, the top lane of top has been a contentious point this entire year so far, with them, you know, having issues with Wayward, having Qingtian come in, who was good at the start, but then got kind of found out on his limited champion pool and aggressive playstyle. Now Wayward's back in, but I think that it's going to be very hard to win in this meta without a solid top laner. And so I think EDG actually has a relatively good shot versus top esports. And then on the other side, like, who's going to beat JDG? BLG has typically had a very tough matchup into JDG. JDG still looking amazing. I don't think LNG is good enough, or Weibo is good enough to take out either of these teams. So I think it's just JDG would be a shock if they lost.
Yeah, I think BLG is like looking like the best team in LPL, but they always lose to JDG. So yeah. I just can't see JDG not making it to finals, and I just feel like they just
it's just the level of experience on JDG as well, that, you know, these guys are going to ramp it up when it gets really tough, right?
I mean, I guess the cope would be that I think the meta is moving away from things that benefit JDG. So part of the reason why JDG was so good before was the fact that they had like all these engage angles that other people couldn't match. So when you looked at their core playstyle, it involved a lot of Annie, for example. Like it was playing Ahri,
or Ornn, yeah,
Gragas. Like, I mean, Wukong is nerfed. Annie is no longer as good as it was. Annie was also nerfed a while back, but Annie is no longer as good as it was. Nico's no longer as good as it was. So now we're in a meta that favors things like Azir. And I don't know if JDG will be as good at playing a more control style. We haven't seen that from them, or seen them be like excellent on that style. So it's not that I think that they're worse than BLG. I just think that maybe BLG will have some benefit here and they could make it closer. Because if you look up until this point, most BLG versus JDG series are just, I mean, BLG is just getting fucking stomped. So
yeah, there's also the fact that Bin might be the best top laner in the world right now.
Yeah, he's fucking good. And so here's something that I think is really cool though about BLG. If you follow them the whole LPL split, you can tell that they are using this split in preparation to try to beat JDG. If you look at the way that they reoriented their team, when they came back to LPL, they obviously lost to JDG at MSI finals. And what did they immediately do as soon as they got back to LPL? They're like, all right, we know that Bin can play as fucking Jax. We know he can play as Gwen and all that shit. They put so many games this split into playing weak side top laners, like playing Renekton, playing Ornn, playing Cassante. Like they just tried to play Gragas. They tried to play the 369 champions on Bin to add another dimension to their gameplay so that they could contend with JDG more later on in the season. I think that that's really fucking cool that they were trying to level up. Like they're already so good. MSI would probably make them the second best team in the world, right? Yep. And they are trying to level up just to beat JDG because they want to be champions. So I love that.
I love that point there too, giving us something to look forward to, assuming, because they're probably going to make it to Worlds. So thanks for that, Tom. Next time we have this episode, we will know who the finalists are. Actually, we'll know one of the finalists. We won't know the second finalist at that time yet. So A lot of these predictions will be coming in. Who will be the LNG Weibo winner? Who's going to win between BLG and top? And then the final 3 teams will still be there. So definitely something to look out for as we breeze through the best bracket in the world of League of Legends. Finally, to close it on off, let's head over to North America, where we've got 8 teams. Everyone gets the participation trophy unless you spend the most or the least money. That's how it works.
I think TSM actually spent the least money, but sure.
Less than Immortals, man.
They're probably the same. I mean, they're probably all on minimum. So
yeah, you know what? TSM spent more money because they have 6 players on their roster.
Ooh. Lawyered.
Wait, you think Ruby? I assumed that they actually recouped some. I assumed that Ruby was paying to be on that team.
Maybe.
No,
he's paying for the shot. Also, guys, this is a great time to mention.
Only way I put him on my team.
Our LFN match of the week is in the LCS, and you might be wondering, why is it in the LCS when there are other good games? Well, we had to pick this before we knew some of the LEC matchups because obviously those happened late, and we didn't have odds
we had
for
to. That's the only reason why this was it.
I really wanted to pick the Telecom War, but I think the T1 fans have finally been mentally boomed because KT has 1.175 odds on that. So I was sad I couldn't get at least a 1.4 for KT.
Whoa. KT is 1.75 odds?
1.175.
Oh, 1.175 odds? Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I was hoping for at least a 1.4 for KT so that there would be some value.
I was surprised it wasn't 3-1 for KT.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's what I already got that value though from the last Telecom War. So we're doing great. Nice. Also, shout out to KT because they were our match of the week last week versus Gen.G. Also parlayed them with their D+ win, so we got over $1,000 back just by parlaying and picking up KT. So that was great. And by the way, we've gotten all of our match of the week predictions correct so far, and so that means you can get an extra 10% bonus on the LFN match of the week. Bonus winnings up to $100 USDT or its equivalent in another cryptocurrency. On your first bet, obviously you can't do it a million times, guys. Like, come on, that should be evident. Anyway, this week's match is Team Liquid versus NRG. Team Liquid is almost at 1.5. So I feel like this is a very good time to take what should be a pretty heavy favorite in the best of 5 against NRG. Thoughts, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't go with Team Liquid. I had the opposite where I went with the other side of things because I think EG versus TSM, like I got that for a 3-1, I got 1.5, and I thought that was good enough. Like 1.5, 3-1. Like I don't really think the TSM should be able to win 2 games. I mean, they had a really bad last week, right? They had a really bad last week. And I think EG looked pretty good in the final week. So I think that unless Insanity does some crazy shit, EG should be able to at least 3-1 them. So that's what I took. But yeah, I could see the other side of the bracket, the TL NRG match being a better call.
I like that one, though. I like that one. Just the actual match score. That seems really reasonable.
Yeah. Straight up, though, NRG, this is a team that punches up to their weight, man. It's the scary part. That's why I'm scared, man.
It's in a best of 1, I would agree with you. Dgon, this is a best of 5.
Yeah. And you've got, actually, I think the largest coaching staff in NRG. You have the vets that have been there before. You leveled up at your support role. And from what I've heard, support and AD carry role, and what I heard, this is what they were preparing for. This is why they made the move, for playoffs, for pressure.
Okay.
There's your sell if you're a fan of Juanito. Let's try to move that line over a little bit, you know.
I think people are coming off a high because they took that game off of Cloud9, you know, in the final week. But I don't think I don't think NRG is going to get blanked here. I think they'll win a game, but I do think Team Liquid is coming in as a pretty heavy favorite. TL, I mean, they lost a couple of games this last week as well, but they lost to much better teams in EG and Golden Guardians. And EG is just one of those teams where, you know, once they get rolling, it's hard to stop them. But if you gum up the works at all and put them behind, then they just lose the game. They like speed run losing the game. And And Golden Guardians has been, I think, the most overall consistent in terms of form in the LCS, because Cloud9 has had some absolutely horrendous losses. Whereas I feel like that's less true of GG.
Yeah. Actually, let me double check this, but a question came in. Are they starting APA or Harry? I don't know why they would change away from APA.
I can't imagine why they
if
would
they
do that.
they are trying to lose on purpose.
APA got beat up a little bit the last couple of weeks. I felt like he got solved and was getting gapped, but he did perform well against the guys that he called out in the interview with me. He wanted to have a good performance against MNS. He got to do it against Insanity as well, even though they lost.
Well, MNS is incredibly overrated.
Yeah. Oh. So is this going to help us with our predictions for playoffs then?
No, I think Cloud9's still going to
win. All right. Well, if you think MNS is overrated, or you don't, honestly, it's probably people that don't. Leave us a comment below over at our YouTube channel.
Look. Cloud9 won a title last year with, the corpse of Jensen on their roster. We know what this group of players can do. MNS is not the key to their success or failure.
The corpse of Jensen has another chance to go to Worlds. The longest streak at Worlds, active streak going to Worlds. Just throwing that one out there. Let's speak some respect on those bones. All right. Let's close it on out here. Dom is not enjoying my stalling.
All right. That's fine. Dom, who do you think is going to LCS?
So I have a take on this. Actually, I was going to say this on Face Check, but I saved it for this show. So
good guy.
Here's my take. I think that Cloud9 will win the LCS. I think they'll beat Golden Guardians. And I think that they'll do this because they know how to win NA. They know how to slow games down and play that like really fucking boring, grinded out style, not blow cooldown, show up to the Drake, set it up, and just win through like just these like really, really, really slow, boring games. But I think that Golden Guardians will do better internationally. And the reason why I think Golden Guardians will do better internationally, unless they play against Cloud9 again, because I think that they're like stylistically countered, is because they understand the concept of fighting for cooldowns and giving themselves advantage through, like, I know people say LPL perma fights, but in reality, the reason why LPL fights so much is because they understand how to take a fight that will lead to a better secondary fight for an objective in the future that matters. So Golden Guardians, I think there was a really good game where they showed this. This is the game versus 100 Thieves. And what they would do is they would take a fight when they were losing, actually. They would take a fight to just blow double his flash. They would blow double his flash, blow his cleanse. And then when he has his summoners down, the next fight is super free. They can just dive him with Vi, and there's nothing he can do. And I don't think Cloud9 knows how to create summoner spell imbalances in their favor so that they can leverage that in a future fight. I think they just played the straight up LCS grinded out league. And I feel like the reason why you have these LCS situations where it looks like everyone's just running in a circle is because everyone has full summoners, so it's very hard for you to do anything. But Golden Guardians puts the other team in situations where the fights are easier to play because people are missing resources on both sides. There's times, for example, I'm going to make a video on this where I explain it more in detail. But there's times, for example, where in the immediate, a flash blow for an ult could be actually good for the person that blew the flash, even though in the future, like if you go for 5 minutes, obviously ultis have lower cooldowns than flashes. Golden Guardians understands the concept of like guy number one flashes on the Xayah burns ult. Okay, now Xayah has no ult in the team fight and we just win the team fight. Doesn't matter if we have no flash. And I don't think that these things are thought about in Cloud9. It doesn't seem like they are trying to blow flashes for the future. I think they're just trying to take like good fights. Like we are ahead at this point. We take the fight when we're ahead. If we're behind, okay, we like scale up and then we hit certain items, like certain item spikes, then we fight again. And this is something that I really like about Golden Guardians. So even though I think C9 will win, I think Golden Guardians is a better team.
I like the take. I mean, I think it's also true that probably, two of the 3 MVP candidates in the league, so Jojo, PN, Blabber, and Berserker, 2 of them are on C9, which obviously helps your chances just in terms of individual ability.
I talked to a lot of pro players when I did the Crackdown. I would have pro players all the time. And one thing that they would always say is there's teams that are good at winning LCS, and then there's like teams that are just trying to be the best team possible. Winning LCS is a little bit different. Like
of course.
when you to win LCS, you can win by being really inactive. If you think about those TSM rosters where it was like they do nothing and lose when they play against the top teams at Worlds, they did nothing and won in NA. Doing nothing is not necessarily good. If you play certain types of comps, maybe it's good to do nothing. If you're playing like a Jace Maokai comp, you probably don't want to blow a bunch of flashes and end up with these imbalances so that you end up having to fight on weird terms. Like you want the game to be stable. You want to walk in, throw a sapling in every bush, throw a couple shock blasts, poke them out. They try to engage, you flash away. It's not good all the time to create imbalances.
I love this.
But the problem with TSM is that when they would go internationally, they would play against teams they needed to do this against. They would play like these Syndra comps, or they would play, how many times do we see the fucking Jace Rise? They would play Jace Rise. It felt like every time they were eliminated, they were playing Jace Rise. And it was like, NA Jace, all this shit. And what would end up happening is like they would play Rise, and Rise is supposed to be able to move around the map with ulti. You're supposed to like make the game your pace.
They fall, what you're saying is they fall against proactive teams because when you're supposed to make a proactive play with champions, instead what NA does is just all cluster around Dragon and just opt into a different kind of team fight.
Yeah, and when they would play the proactive champions, they were too concerned with playing like standard league, which is we get items, we hit certain spikes, we go to the objective, and then we win because we're stronger than them. Like, you're not stronger than them if they have all their summoners. If they have all their summoners and all their flashes, and you're playing Rise, you can no longer do this, like, Rise flank. Oh, you're suddenly behind them, and, like, this guy's just fucked because he has nothing he can do. It's like, you get behind him, and he presses cleanse, and then he flashes, and then suddenly you're just, like, in a front to back, and you're playing Rise, and this guy's fucking blocking you, and you're kind of short range, and it's just annoying to play. So I think that this is, like, a big issue in general from watching NA, is that they don't fight these, like, mini fights for like summoners. Like they don't fight for a summoner. They fight.
I like the phrase that Wolf uses from this, and he pulled it in from fighting games and from Overwatch, which is fighting in the neutral, which just means that, you know, you are skirmishing without an objective up in order to extract resources of summoners and ultimates or major cooldowns from your opponents.
I love that.
Yeah.
I hope this makes sense to our viewers, and I think everyone will look forward to the video that you put out there to describe the situation and how it can happen within pro play.
Yep.
All right. There's our picks for the LCS. Let's close it out. Certified banger of the week. Banger time. Give me the graphic right now.
Boom. Yeah, Jesus.
It's been a long day.
I'm sweating, dude. Like, and I'm
sweating too. I'm in my garage, just like, yeah. See, look at my armpits. I'm just overheating in my garage. Hell yeah!
Nice.
Oh,
is that your setup? Your setup's in the garage?
I mean, I have a fully finished garage, and I have an AC unit in here, but it's still very hot in LA at the moment.
Yeah,
nice.
It is warm.
Monty,
OMG versus ADG.
Have you said publicly where you're moving yet?
Oh, I'm well. Here's what I'm gonna do. In early September, I'm gonna put all my shit in a truck and send it to Colorado, and then I'm gonna go to Korea from September until April, and then I'm gonna move to Denver. So there you go.
You're moving to Denver. Okay.
Yep. Going back to my home state, getting the fuck out of LA. I'm done with these LA prices, Dom. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I was done with it a while back. I said, fuck you, LA. That's why I'm here.
I mean, there's just no reason for me to be here anymore because I don't do anything that requires me to be here. And obviously, like, being closer to your parents when you have kids is very helpful and useful.
Yeah.
And also, I like Colorado, and I'm just going to go skiing all the time. So it'll be great.
Nice. I was hoping you moved to. I think I'm making a Vegas move. That's why I.
Oh, really? You're just going to go, speaking of it, burning up. Damn.
Yeah. It's gonna be AC out the ass, but yeah.
I'm surprised. Why are you moving to Vegas? You already pay 0% taxes.
Well, okay. So here's one thing. I guess we're going off topic.
The internet is great in Vegas.
Yeah. So the internet's great. That's one thing. Another thing is there's just more to do in Vegas than there is in, like, I mean, it depends on what you're into, but like I'm kind of the type of guy that wants to, like, go to a nice restaurant, go to a show. I think that's better to do in Vegas than in Austin. Austin's like kind of like live music. Yeah. So that's part of it. The other part is, like, the way they get you in Texas is there's no state income tax, but the property tax is high as fuck.
Yes, true.
But Vegas is like low income tax, no income tax, low property tax as well. So that's like one thing that I'm trying to remove all the costs that are just bullshit. And if I can go to a place where like I enjoy it to live more anyway, like might as well.
Chat thought you were gonna say Gamba, but I don't think people know Dom doesn't need to Gamba online or Gamba in person. He Gambas online.
Also, guys, you just have to remember that Dom doesn't go outside. He just told you he watched 13 hours of League of Legends, and then he needs
I
to
go
sleep.
outside. I went outside yesterday.
Okay.
I just don't go outside while I'm watching League of Legends.
That's
actually the color that you always wonder why the color is a little off on Dom's screen. It's because he has a yellowish light to give him a little bit of skin tone. That's why the red IWillDominate sign behind him looks a little more orange. He doesn't go outside.
No, I agree with you though. I mean, the restaurant scene is extraordinary in Vegas, and also even if you're not into gambling, Vegas just has tons of stuff to do these days.
It's very fun.
I mean, it's just really nice to like go see like a show. And then I think that they might have a sports team soon. So I mean, they have sports teams, but a basketball team soon. So like that'll be fun to do. I think that'll most likely happen. I mean, if you look at how everything's trending with them getting the Raiders and the Vegas Golden Knights, and yeah.
Again, we have a lot of European viewers. The taxes are pretty high here. Kokona, freedom, Kokona. But I'm stuck here in LA because of the shows, and I just keep looking for a relationship in Los Angeles. I don't know why. They just look.
Dgon, you can start your new YouTube show. Dgon's Love in LA.
Dgon dates. Dgon does dates. There it is. Would you guys watch? Please,
I watch it. Please,
it depends how cringe it was.
Dates?
I can't watch many like dating shows.
It's not cringe. The stories I have are now funny, but in the moment, I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening.
I have actually heard from people that the dating scene in Los Angeles is fucking horrific.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I was there, it's just like, it just depends on like what you're looking for.
Yeah, wait, Dom dating is so different than like me, normal person dating. I feel like that has to be different. It
wasn't that much. Wait, why? You think I just leverage like...
No, I don't think you did anything intentionally like that, but I think, people know who they don't know Christian, they know Dom. They know, are you IWillDominate?
Yeah, it's like good and bad in a way, I would say.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Oh, don't have to worry about that shit anymore. Thank God.
Thank God.
I also count my blessings on that front.
Yeah. For those of you that
Dgon, you can just come to Denver with me. You're a Broncos fan. It's time for us to watch the Broncos revival.
For those of you watching and interested in hosting, that's called a hard pivot. They don't want to talk about this anymore. So let's go to OMG versus EDG, our certified banger of the week. It was a best of 5 series. Great series. OMG up 2-1. They went with the double marksman composition here, Dom, to push it over the edge, right? That was game number 4. It was the Xayah Tristana combo that, it was close.
I'll just we could do this really quickly. You should watch this series. It's very entertaining. It's everything you would want to see from these two teams playing each other. You got the Uzi Vayne nostalgia game. Who didn't? They did. He had a good early game though, to be fair.
Well, he lost lane and then he got a gank because JJ just carries him perma. But yeah.
And then, fine, but he did get a triple in that gank, and then
all because of JJ and Mako. But I mean, he auto attacked him.
Look, it's about the narrative, Dom. You wanted to see the Uzi. You wanted to see the Uzi Vayne game. We all wanted to see it. He lost, and the way he lost was to an OMG fucking Rel Yone Cream Yone Wombo combo. What more do you want from this game? It was like the quintessence of these players and these teams going against each other, and it was really quite entertaining.
JJ Legacy series. This guy, I felt bad going into the series because you just don't want to play against a player like JJ. Like the thing about JJ is he's like hit or miss during the season. He has bad games, good games. But ever since that summer playoffs, that summer playoffs in 2021 where he got subbed that one time, he's just clutch. He's just good when it matters. Like even in the series, if you guys remember EDG versus DRX, I thought he was better than Pioshik in that series, like the series that went to 5 games that they played at Worlds. Like JJ was just big in that series. Like he just shows up. I mean, we'll see how he does.
5 Sejuani games, the dream.
5 Sejuani, but it's like Sejuani is the thing about Sejuani is it's like Like he can play everything. Number one, this guy can play everything. He was known as a Viego player. Just as Sejuani is good right now, so he's going to play a champion that's strong, and he plays it fucking well. And he's all over the map. I mean, he ran Aki for the most part. It was tough to watch, but he is a really fucking top tier jungler, and I think he's just a competitor, which is what I like to see the most out of LPL teams, to be honest. Like when you watch them play, it doesn't feel like you get that many chokes out of teams. Like people have bad games, people have bad moments, but the teams as wholes, they play their game. They play like relatively to what level you'd expect out of them, and there's a lot of that true competition. Like you can feel that there's a sense of pride, and teams are going there to just prove that they're the fucking best. And I love to see that out of teams. So I mean, this is a fucking banger series. EDG versus OMG. I mean, I thought for the most part, you know, you had Cream getting the best of Fofo in the mid lane, and then he had fucking horrific ints, and you know that was kind of the end of it. I think in lane, Uzi was not as good as Abel, for example. It was close. I mean, it was definitely.
Oh, you also got an Abel Samira game. I mean, this is like
sick.
Why it was fun. I mean, like it was.
That's
it
like
was
OMG.
just,
Like you're always gonna get that with OMG. You always get.
I know
games
it's fun.
when you watch OMG.
So like, I mean, and we also got an Uzi like throwback Jinx game as well. So you did get to see kind of a lot of Uzi's greatest hits in this series. Which, if you're an old school League of Legends fan. Look, Uzi's not the player he used to be, but it's still fun for nostalgia reasons to go back and see him play these champions.
So Uzi is not playing well right now. Like if you go to like well as you're playing in LPL, the best region in the world, and you're playing versus like look at the other 80 carries that he got to when you got to top 6. Jackie Love, Gala, you have Ruler in there, Elk, and then Light. Like those are really fucking good players. So he's not as good as those players. But that being said, think about the fact he took 3 years off and he's actually still able to compete. Like that's the thing that I think that's the real story with Uzi is he's so fucking good. He was so fucking good that he could take 3 years off, have a baby, stream, do all this shit, come back and like he's played less than a full split.
Yeah.
And he's serviceable. Like he's not perfect. He makes mistakes, but he's able to compete. That's crazy.
Contrast that to Doublelift, right? No shade, but he's probably a middle of the pack AD carry this year in terms of form. And he took a year off. Was it just
2 years?
2 years. So there's your 1-to-1 example right there. A hell of a series. I was worried there, Dom, that you're going to try to sell us on Sejuani as a champ. Right, you're like, he's a competitor. It's more about JJ being a competitor. I was like,
Sejuani's really good right now.
I mean, he's a good Sejuani. Like you watch the way he plays the game, and like he's super active in the fucking game. Like he's all over the place. He's ganking. Like, he just hits the right timing. When you watch the game from a jungler perspective, it's really nice to watch. Like JJ is just making the difference in these games. He's hitting timings at right times. He's abusing summoners being down. And this guy is, I mean, he's a fucking monster. He's a really fucking good player. So it's going to be interesting to see the Korea versus China in Asian games.
Yeah. Also, just shout out to Ale as well, who I mentioned earlier is just doing really, really well in the top 10 right now.
Yeah, he did. So I think that Gen.G did a pretty good job in all the games besides for game number 4, where the Jax just like took over, where he got that 2v1 kill. That was tough. But in the other games, I thought Gen.G like really held his own. I mean, the Malphite versus Renekton game, that's just how Malphite versus Renekton looks. Like I think Gen.G played the lane to what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
game number 1, I thought Gen.G was better than him. Like
that 2v1 though is kind of a fluke because if Ale doesn't hit 6 after getting the first kill, then like he doesn't.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that was just feels bad.
Yeah, Gen.G misplayed. Like he should have W'd and then insta-E'd, but he tried to weave an auto, and in that auto, he ended up just getting one tapped. And yeah, I mean that's really unfortunate. That pretty much loses the game. But I thought that overall, I mean, it was just like a war between good players, and you know, there was a couple more mistakes from OMG, so they end up losing.
All right, well there you have it.
Fighting 5 games. I mean, it is what it is. And hey, if you like that series, if you watch OMG versus EDG, you like that series, watch Top versus EDG. It's another 5-game series, and like this just shows how competitive LPL is, right? Like OMG lost by 1 game to EDG, EDG lost by 1 game to Top Esports, and there were other wars.
I'm looking forward to watching that series because it happened this morning, so I haven't been able to.
More people got to watch LPL, man. Like LPL is fun. Like I really like seeing that. Like there's so many viewers now in Kadril's chat and in my chat and on the stream compared to like previous years where playoff series might have like 15K on the main stream or like 12K on the main stream and like 5K on my stream. Now like Cagel's got like 17. I think I had like 7 today. The mainstream had like 25. Like people are starting to watch more LPL, and like LPL is a fun fucking region. Like
It is.
The playoffs are
Agreed.
fucking sick.
Yeah, especially because now that we've I had my notepad out earlier when we were listing off all the different accolades of these top 6 teams.
Oh.
It's pretty awesome to
So much
to
history.
see. Yeah.
So much history. So many storylines. Like you don't even have to try. I mean, just think about what we're getting tomorrow. Like, okay, so we're gonna finish this in 10 hours. There's another LPL series, and it's just another absolute fucking banger between LNG and Weibo. That's the next series, and then you get past this, and you're like, oh man, like all right, let's cool down a bit. BLG top is the day after.
JDG
like,
versus LNG or Weibo.
Yeah,
so
and JDG versus LNG versus Weibo. It's too fucking insane, bro. LPL is too fucking cool.
LCK these next couple of weeks is just ending the regular season with a bunch of actually just super boring games.
But it's actually really cool because that means that like you watch LPL, the whole grind is right now, and then afterwards you get LCK playoffs, and now it's not like all of them stacked on top of each other. You can watch all of them.
Also,
completely.
shout out to LEC, like actual season finals starting after LCS and LCK finals end, so that LEC will be the only league running. So we actually get to pay attention to all of those matches.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is.
And I won't be doing these shows after 12-hour days.
Yeah. even next week, that's true.
I don't know if you felt that. No one felt it. Andrew just held his breath when you said, I won't be doing these shows.
Ever again.
Yeah, I mean, if we went any higher than 2 on the OMG fraud meter, then maybe we wouldn't. But, you know, we kept it reasonable. We gave FlyQuest a 30 and OMG like a 1 average.
You realize that sometimes I put things in there just so that we can debunk them, so that we can, control the proper narrative, right?
Yeah. I mean, even like Kadro messaged me after that like OMG series. Like he like obviously like the whole thing is he's like playing like I'm a OMG hater. I mean, he's really just it's just like a joke between us because I flamed the Shy, and then he's like, fuck you flamed my team, I'll flame your team. Like that's like the joke, right? He messaged me after. He was like, damn, bro, that was a he's like, I feel kind of bad for OMG. Like he's playing the OMG hater on stream. He messaged me after. He's like, dude, I feel bad for OMG. Like
it's the same thing that Doe and I would do about T1 versus KT on casts back in the day, right? Like we just pretended to be fans of those teams because it was entertaining. And it was funny because like KT would always lose and I would be sad.
Which is funny, apparently.
It is funny. People find it entertaining. That's just entertainment, baby. All right. That's it.
I know.
Go watch
that
that series.
Wait, go watch that series. But along the lines, I don't overthink this, Tom. Does OMG stay together?
I hope so. I don't think they will, though. The problem is 3. So I looked in the contract database, and 3 of their players are expiring. Cream, Abel, and Aki, all their contracts expire. And like I said, dude, OMG, they didn't like spend a lot of money on this roster. I don't know if they're ready to shell out contracts to get these guys back together. And I think a lot of players are going to want Cream. I think the fact that he showed, like, obviously he like choked this game, but like he showed a level of skill on the meta champions where you think, man, if he's this good on meta champ, what happens if it's his meta? What happens if we get into Silas Akali Ari meta? Like again, like we've had so many Silas Akali metas. He could just be like one of the best mid laners in LPL. Like he might be able to beat. Like, dude, this guy did a lot this year, right? Like, who did he beat last split? Who did he have to beat in series in order to get to top 4? He beat Rookie, and he beat Scout. And like, if you're beating those guys, and then imagine if like the meta hits him right in the face, and imagine if you put him with like a jungler, or you put him with somebody who's not Aki, you put him with one of these beast junglers in LPL, JJ, for example. I mean, what happens if he just went to EDG? That's what I'm worried about. I don't know if all these guys are going to resign. I could deal with Aki leaving the team. I could even deal with PB God leaving the team. If Abel and Cream are no longer on the team, it's just not OMG anymore. You know, like the thing that's so cool about them is having all those different all those 3 players in those 3 lanes.
Well, they got the new logo this year. I don't know if that meant they had new injection of money or new leadership or whatever it is, but maybe Dom's dream won't be over yet. Maybe they could always be like T1, you know, run it back and burn out next year around summer playoffs.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna leave you with that. Y'all, it has been a hell of an episode, 2 hours plus on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to both of you guys for knocking this one out. Final words, Dom?
I am going to sleep. That's
Nice.
Good night, sweet prince.
That it, Mati?
That's it.
All right. Laban Pilipinas, good luck today in your game. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week for more Power Spike. See ya.